I'm just going to demonstrate a couple of quick things in case it helps you with this lab. And so I'll go over editing letter forms and using the marquee tool for a couple of different things, trimming and then making your little rectangle that I'm going to house a letter mark in. And let's start with that. So the first thing is you have to kind of just play with different typefaces and put together little marks using the same letter and the same typeface. Okay, so pretty straightforward. And if I were to just kind of mimic what I had previously done, I can kind of get through this video and do good time. So you basically have, we're working with path on or type on a path. So right now it's an editable font in my character window. But we're not really, when I provide a little bit of information, I'm probably going to want to have my character window up. But that's a nice thing to have, so then you can explore, your different typefaces. So the thing is, whenever you're working with your type, you change the size or you transform it, you always have to apply the transformation. So that's the first thing. And then you can edit from here. But what I like to do is once I kind of know that I'm going to be working with which typeface, so I'm actually going to go get this is the one I'm going to use. Once you've decided on the typeface that you want to play with, sometimes it's good just to make a copy, and put it over to the side so you remember. Because as soon as I turn it into, as soon as I rasterize my typeface, I might not remember which typeface I was working with. So I can go down and rasterize my type layer. And I kind of like having that backup example so that I don't have to, if you explore lots of typefaces, you might forget which one you actually used. And once it's a rasterized shape, this no longer applies. So it's no longer andale modo, it's just it's a raster shape. So then I can play with transforming it. If I hold down the shift key when I'm rotating it, it automatically places it horizontally, which is nice. And then I can start kind of working with my mark. And of course I always have to go back and hit my toolbar to apply it, which is a little annoying. But anyways, then I option duplicate it, and I can kind of build my little mark. And it's nice having your smart guides out, because then you can kind of estimate easier kind of the if measuring between the space is helpful. It's really nice to have those guides to alert you to that. So then I've kind of got my my 3 H's here, right? And then it's a raster shape, because if it's not, it has the T right in your layer. As soon as you rasterize it, it just turns into the transparent background. So there are my three H's that are raster shapes, and I'm going to merge those. So now I've kind of got my mark set up. I might decide that I want to, and it's a good reason to rasterize, because then I can start editing it. And I actually decided that when I was making this mark, it's nice to trim it. And there's my simple little mark. And then I've got my associations. So there are my associations I've come up with. Okay. And I actually added another. No, I did not for this one. I've got the four associations. So I want you to come up with at least four or five. If you come up with more than 4, then that means you really put your mind to it. So, okay, so I've got my type, and then I've got my other elements. And once you've got your mark, then you kind of have to just label it, with your support information, which I have here. And then I've got my example 1. So that's kind of all of the bits and bobs that I have. And I'm going to kind of keep this as... yeah, I'll just keep that. I'll turn it off. I don't need to see that anymore. So, oh, it's this one. Okay, turn that off. So now I have to kind of line up my my layout is kind of randomly, ad hocly there. So the easiest way to do, like I kind of sometimes like working with my guides. I was thinking that I want to center this in kind of a rectangular format. So you can get your rulers out from your view. Go get your rulers, and then from there you can kind of pull your guides down, right? And I had some set up already. And the shortcut for seeing your guides or getting rid of your guides is Command semicolon. So that's a nice shortcut to access or not access your guides. So I had pulled out my guides, and I'd kind of come up with this nice grid rectangle that I've centered in the middle of my page. And you can work with your guides. Another thing you can do, I kind of like working with my guides because it helps me think about my overall layout. So I've got my center rectangle for my first example, and then I've got these quadrants down here, for example number 2 and then example number 3, and it's all going to be within this area, right, of the page. So so I can use those guides. They can be quite helpful. And so then what I would do is to align things, you've got, when you have your move tool selected, it allows you to see these transforms at the top left here, and those are all of your alignment options. And so then what you have to do is define the area that you want to align things to, and you need to have your layers out. So this is my area right here. Okay, so there's my marching ants around that area. And then that's the defined area. So then I can align all of my elements into that area. So then I select my little move tool, and then I'm going to first align my my mark. So yeah, that's the mark. As soon as I highlight a layer, right, then you can see these kind of light up. So that means that I can center a line here. There it goes. And then I can select my example 1, and maybe I want to align that to the left of my area. And then my description of my visual associations, I'm going to also align that to the left. And then I'm also going to bump it up. And then I have a couple of other things. Identifying my typeface is over here. So maybe I'll move that to the right. And I don't know, I might want it at the top, or I can always nudge it down. Once I get out of my marching ants, I'll be able to nudge that down if I want. And then my H example with the red square, I'm going to merge those layers together. Merge those layers so they're together. And then I should be able to align those to the right and around at the bottom. So that's like a really easy way to set up a nice little grid layout within your page. Okay, so that's easy enough. And what else was I going to do here? I think I've covered. Oh, the rectangle, the small rectangle. Yeah, I'm gonna show you. You can use these shapes to kind of highlight your letter if you want. But I was just thinking, sometimes people use shapes to create little, support graphics. But I really like using the marquee tool. So I'm just going to go over quick how to do that, because it allows me to talk about. I'm going to move that up here. It allows me to talk about this select under the select menu, this modify feature. So I want to just highlight that before I close out. So here's my my marquee. I've got that going, and I'm going to fill it with. I'll just make that red box. So I've got my fill there set up, and all I have to do is option delete, and it fills, right? And I've got my marching ants, and a really fun way to make if I wanted to just have an outline in a box instead of a completely filled kind of rectangle, then I would just go to my select modify menu and I would do contract. And these are actually really good. You can put borders on shapes, you can smooth it out, you can even expand the actual size of your little shape if you need to just edit it slightly, or you can contract, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to contract 1 pixel and hit OK, and then when I hit the delete key, that gives me this really nice little rectangle. So with the little stroked box, I might decide that I don't like this one, and so I can just copy that that H, and I might just bring that over here. And when you're kind of working with small things, it sometimes helps to zoom in. You have more control with placing things, because sometimes it's very kind of sticky in terms of how you can arrange things. You can also use your little arrow keys, which are really good for nudging things kind of in, which is sometimes what you have to do when you're doing like type layouts and positioning things. So that can work. And so yeah, so I've got these couple of little examples of my boxes here. I think those are the two. So I'm going to merge those together, keep them together, put them up here. So I'm coming up with different little variations on my little boxed button theme here. But the thing that you might want to also play with is working with your shape tool. So you can create really nice little buttons with your shapes. So for example, a rounded rectangle tool. I know Daniel, when he worked on his midterm, I think he was working a lot with this, what I'm going to show you. And that's, you can just basically make a little rounded corner rectangle, which are kind of nice for buttons. And if I hold down the Shift key, it's proportionate in scale, so that's a nice thing. So if I really want to make a square, hold down the Shift key, got that. And then when you just go to your effects, this is like a really fun thing. So now I'm working with a shape, all right? So I can't access this menu that I was working with, the modify. That's only for little raster images, okay? So the shapes are not raster images. And if you go to your effects, then you can start playing with things like stroke or bevel and emboss. So I'm going to just go to bevel and emboss, and you can kind of instantly see how you can make a really nice little button. Okay, so there's different styles. So you can do, an outer bevel, you can do an inner bevel. You just kind of play with these. I kind of like the emboss. I think that looks kind of neat and tidy, And then another thing you can do is play with the color, that the shadow mode. So you want your shadow not to be screaming at you, right? You want it to be kind of almost invisible. And if you want one at all, I mean, I like doing kind of flat, flat design sometimes with typography, so that the things in the layout don't compete with the typography. But you can kind of play around with that. See, a little bit lighter, it's more subtle, right? So you can kind of play with these settings. There's lots of little fun things to play with here, and the contour, the gloss contour, is it's just endless fun to be had in Photoshop, right? That pops it out a bit, and some of them are kind of awful. So don't get too carried away with some of these some of these features, because the last thing we want is to distract from our content, right? But anyways, that's you can play around with those effects. There's lots of fun things in there, and then I might decide on, I've got 3 buttons, which one do I like, right? And I think for me, the winner is going to be, let me see here, I think I like my new one. So that is, I'm going to turn that one off. And I'm going to move this one over here. That's the winner, okay? So anyways, you get the idea. So have fun, and that's it for this video.